The Silent Waltz, a heartfelt love story set during the Civil War. The year was 1863. The rolling hills of Virginia lay cloaked in the golden haze of autumn, but the beauty was deceptive. The Civil War had turned the land into a graveyard, its silence broken only by distant cannon fire and the cries of the wounded. Erik Brandt, a Union scout, stumbled through the dense woods, blood seeping from the gunshot wound in his side. His legs wavered beneath him, and as the edges of his vision blurred, he collapsed into the tall grass near a sprawling plantation. The stranger's sanctuary. Erik awoke to the scent of lavender and the faint glow of candlelight. His hand instinctively reached for the knife at his side but found only bandages where his wound had been. "Don't move," a soft voice warned. His eyes adjusted to the light, revealing a young woman seated nearby, her auburn hair catching the candle's glow. Her name was Lillian Hawthorne, the daughter of the plantation's owner. She held a basin of water and a bloodied cloth. Why are you helping me?" Erik rasped. Lillian hesitated, her delicate features shadowed with doubt. "Because no one deserves to die alone." Erik tried to sit up, but the pain sent him back onto the straw-filled mattress. "You realize I'm the enemy?" Lillian's lips tightened. "You're a man, not a monster. The war is out there," she gestured toward the window, "but it doesn't have to be in here." A growing connection. Over the next few days, Lillian tended to Erik in secret, bringing him food and water under the cover of night. They spoke in whispers, their conversations laced with curiosity and caution. Lillian told him about her life, how the war had drained the plantation of its workers, leaving her family in financial ruin. She spoke of her late mother's gentle wisdom and her father's hardened heart. Erik shared stories of his home in Pennsylvania, his dream of a free nation where every man and woman could live without chains. "You believe in a future that may never come," Lillian said one night, her voice trembling with doubt. "I have to," Erik replied, his gaze locked with hers. "Because if I don't, what's the point of any of this?" Their bond deepened with each passing night, their shared humanity bridging the divide of war. Yet every glance, every touch carried the weight of forbidden love. The Dance of Defiance. One evening, Lillian returned to the barn with news that chilled Erik to his core. "There are soldiers in the house," she whispered. "Confederate officers. They're searching for Union scouts." Erik's jaw tightened. "You should turn me in. Protect yourself." Lillian's eyes blazed with defiance. "No. I've made my choice." As the sound of laughter and music drifted from the house, Erik smirked despite himself. "What's that?" "A waltz," Lillian said, her voice tinged with nostalgia. "My father insists on hosting these gatherings to maintain appearances." Erik extended a hand, his grin mischievous. "Care to dance?" Lillian hesitated. "Here. Now." "Why not?" he replied. "If this is the end, let's make it memorable." Taking his hand, Lillian allowed herself to be drawn into his arms. In the flickering light of the lantern, they swayed to the distant music, their steps unsteady but filled with unspoken longing. For a moment, the war outside vanished, leaving only the rhythm of their beating hearts. The turning point. Their fragile sanctuary was shattered the next morning. Lillian's father, Elias Hawthorne, stormed into the barn, flanked by 2 Confederate soldiers. His eyes burned with fury as he took in the sight of Erik, weak but defiant, standing between Lillian and danger. "This is treason," Elias spat, his voice shaking with rage. "You've disgraced our family, Lillian." "I saved a life," she replied, her voice steady. "Is that so unforgivable?" Elias drew his pistol, aiming it at Erik. "You've brought this upon yourself, soldier." "Wait!" Lillian cried, stepping in front of Erik. "If you kill him, you'll lose me too." The room fell silent, the weight of her words hanging heavy in the air. Finally, Elias lowered the pistol, his face a mask of bitterness. "Get him out of here," he growled, "before I change my mind." The escape. Under the cover of darkness, Lillian led Erik to the edge of the plantation, where a narrow path disappeared into the woods. This is as far as I can go, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Erik reached for her hand, his touch gentle. Come with me, Lillian. We can start over, somewhere far from all this. Tears glistened in her eyes as she shook her head. My father may be cruel, but he's all I have left. I can't abandon him. Erik cupped her face, his thumb brushing away a tear. Then promise me you'll live, Lillian. Promise me you'll find happiness. I will, she whispered. If you promise to survive. I'll find you, Erik vowed. No matter how long it takes. As the first rays of dawn broke through the trees, Erik disappeared into the shadows, leaving Lillian standing alone, her heart aching with the weight of goodbye. Epilogue. 2 years later, the war ended, leaving scars across the nation. The Hawthorne plantation, once grand, had fallen into ruin. Lillian spent her days tending to the land, her nights haunted by memories of Erik. She often wandered the woods, hoping for a sign that he had kept his promise. One spring morning, as she stood by the stream where they had first spoken, a voice called her name. She turned, her breath catching as she saw Erik standing there, his uniform replaced by simple clothes, his face weary but smiling. I told you I'd find you, he said, his voice filled with quiet triumph. Lillian ran to him, tears streaming down her face. You kept your promise. As did you, he replied, pulling her into his arms. In that moment, the world faded, leaving only the two of them. Their love, forged in the fire of war, had survived against all odds, a silent waltz that would echo in their hearts for Eve.